Hi Sian, thanks for being willing to share your story really about discovering when you had some hearing loss, how you then adjusted to it, how your family adjusted to it, and then how you've adapted. So first of all, could you tell me when you first discovered or realised you might have some hearing loss? You talked about a science test.
Well, I knew we had a science test when I was only 12, 13, and we had to raise our hands when we could no longer hear the sounds. And as the frequency rose higher, I was the first person to raise my hand. So, and apparently it was an equivalent hearing loss to that of my teacher, who was late 50s. But I didn't really make much of this, and I was aware that my hearing wasn't brilliant, but it didn't really take it into account at all. But it was when I was 29 years of age, in my fourth year of teaching, that a teaching college brought the subject up and suggested that I have my hearing tested. And I did nothing. And then she suggested that I would be disciplined. It would be treated as a disciplinary matter if I didn't get my ears tested. So I went ahead, did that, and was issued with an analogue hearing aid, but wasn't really given much advice. And I found it very unpleasant, very difficult. It was like having an amplifier in your ear, really. And to my mind, it didn't didn't improve my hearing in any way. So a year later, I then had a digital hearing aid fitted privately, but I was very disappointed with that too. It didn't seem to significantly improve my hearing, and I, in the classroom, found it very frustrating. Found it very difficult hearing pupils, understanding what they were saying and coping with the background noise. Anyway, I eventually left teaching.
Sian, just before we carry on, why do you think you did, when that teacher first said you needed to get your hearing checked, why do you think you did nothing?
I think I quite honestly didn't think it would make any difference. I thought even if I was given a hearing aid, my grandmother had had a hearing aid and it didn't improve her hearing significantly, and I didn't really have any belief in them. So I thought it would be a waste of time. Initially it didn't really help, but it was later on, 5 years later, I went back to the National Health Service and had a digital hearing aid for both ears, and persevered with them, and they did make a significant difference. But I still felt that I still struggled, and I realised that they're not a substitute pair of ears, they're simply a hearing aid. And I did continue to get frustrated because I was aware, perhaps more aware than ever, that I didn't hear as well as other people. And I think I got frustrated because with people who don't enunciate, don't take any account of your hearing loss, I did find that quite difficult.
You seem to have, Sian, one of the best clearest pronunciations of people I know. How has it come your pronunciation is so clear?
It's because I subliminally want people to speak like that to me so that I can understand what they're saying. I think it's probably, I'm aware that I ask people to speak clearly, so I think, well, I can't ask people to speak clearly if I don't speak clearly myself, so it's a subconscious thing really, I think.
Okay.
I'm willing people to speak like I speak.
Okay. You talked about you thought hearing aids would bring you back perfect hearing, and I asked you where that idea came from, that hearing aids would give you perfect hearing. Had someone given you that hope?
I think it was partly the marketing. When they're advertising these hearing aids, they say, oh, this will eliminate background noise, it's transformed people's lives, it's revolutionary, and that's just not true. Definitely it makes a difference, but it's not the same as having a new pair of ears. It's not the same as having perfect hearing. But it was also I would say family members as well seemed to think that if I had a pair of hearing aids, then that would solve everything. And they didn't realise that you've still got to take someone's hearing loss into account when you speak to them or communicate with them.
Did you find you wanted your family to adapt in how they communicated to you?
Definitely. I was once told by my mum she'd seen a deaf awareness course advertised, and I said, I don't need to go on a deaf awareness course. I'm well aware of what my problems are. That's for the likes of people like you who have deaf relatives, so that you learn how to adapt. And that didn't really go down well.
What was your mum's reaction?
Well, she didn't really. She hasn't read up on it at all. I don't think she's followed any advice, and I have had to say to her, look at me. She will shout at me from a different room, and I just say, wait, I am not ready. And she's beginning to adapt, but it's very, very slow.
And when you were applying for one job you were considering recently, your brother made some suggestions and gave some opinions. Do you want to share a bit about that?
It was quite a while ago. It was nearly 8 years ago. But it was in sales administration, so it had been working with salesmen. And he said, that won't work for you at all, because salesmen will say something and you'll hear something else, you'll mishear them, you'll give the wrong quote, and you'll be in trouble. You won't be able to cope with that at all, and because you're deaf, so you'll get it wrong.
And you felt how?
I felt very upset that I was being discriminated against because of my deafness. And yes, it would be a problem, but there are ways around it. And these days, I make sure I don't agree things verbally, but I get them backed up by email, so that I've always got proof that I'm following the right instructions.
And there was one other thing you said about in the workplace was when you're applying, would you say it's worth mentioning your hearing needs or not when you apply for a job?
Well, I have to confess I never have. And a year ago I was interviewed for a new job, and I had quite a long hair at the time, and my hearing aids were covered up, and I didn't mention my hearing loss at all. And I had my hair cut a week later, and so when I went to work, my hearing aids were quite visible, and it was quite obvious that I had a hearing loss. But fortunately, my employers are very understanding and take it into account, and have made sure that I'm, without my volunteering the information, have made sure that I'm sitting in the right place so that I can hear what's going on. They have been extremely understanding employers, but I wasn't expecting that, even though hearing loss is one of the protected characteristics. What was it? The Equality Act 2010. So employers should be understanding, but I know they're not always.
So who do you think are the people best placed to bring the Equality Act into practice?
I think it is people like me who should draw it to others' attention, and I have too often in the past just put up with not hearing, and now I need to emphasise to people, please will you speak more clearly, please don't speak to me when you have your back turned, I need to lip read, I have a hearing loss, and keep repeating it over and over so it finally gets drummed in.
So would you say that hearing loss is like other loss, it's a kind of bereavement?
Certainly, yes, I mean it's a loss that I suppose I haven't really still come to terms with it. I still get upset and angry when people don't speak clearly when I can't hear them. So I haven't come to terms with it, certainly, and it's, yes, it's a loss. You can have your hearing aids, top of the range hearing aids, but they don't replace your hearing, so it's something that you will never get back.
But it sounds like you're saying that it's when anyone loses something valuable, if they and those who know and love them respond and adapt together, the chances of continuing in life with hope and prosperity are higher.
Yes, it's a two-way thing. So it is a responsibility I have given up too often and just said, oh, it's no good in that situation, I can't hear properly, whereas I should make the effort. A church meeting, for example, say, please will you take those of us with a hearing loss into account, make sure you speak clearly, make sure the microphones are switched on, make sure that we can hear what's being said, instead of just, I've too often just said, oh, it's no good, I can't hear. It's got to be communication on my part, teaching others, but there's no reason why, if I don't teach them, that we can't work together.
Okay, and just finally, in the church service we went to this morning, there was an induction loop. Did you test it out?
Yes, and it worked very well.
It helped.
So I think yes. Churches are very good with the induction loop. That is, although they don't necessarily advertise it that widely. Sometimes you have to ask about it, but these days the technology is there, so it's a question of asking, not being afraid to ask, I guess, and I don't ask often enough.
Sian, thanks ever so much for sharing this.
Thank you. Welcome.